Hi, everyone. Good morning, good evening, depending on which part of the world you've joined in from. I'm Mohita Prasad, and I'm going to conduct this workshop about how to set up a testing center of excellence. So let's get started. We will start with a little bit about the organization, the company that I work for, and then we will go to AST's Testing Center of Excellence. So the company that I work for is called AST Corporation, and we've set up a Testing Center of Excellence in this company. A little bit about myself, and then we would go straight to what we started with when we started the process of building the Testing Center of Excellence, what we wanted to do, and then the steps that could be used for building the Center of Excellence for testing. I would also talk about the challenges we faced in the process and where we are now, what lessons we've learned, and then we'll have some time for question and answers. Okay. So with that, let me first introduce you to AST, Application Software Technology. That's the company that I work for. And AST is a full-service enterprise system integrator. What that means is we specialize in the process of implementing ERP solutions for our clients, both in the government sector as well as in the commercial sector. And as you can see here, we've completed more than 700 plus cloud projects, 900 plus successful implementations. And a big part of our testing and our system, ERP system implementation is Oracle. So we are a top tier Oracle partner. And we would talk about that a little bit later of what we do in there. And this is about AST's Testing Center of Excellence. This is the team that is responsible for end-to-end test management for all projects of AST. So this team gets involved in the project all the way from initiate through the deploy stage of the project, which means all the way through go live of the project. So we start creating, we meet with the team, we train the team, we prepare the strategy document, we configure and set up the test management tool, we track and manage the process through every iteration of testing, be it unit testing, hands-on, SIT, or UAT. We also do a daily reporting on standard metrics. And then after the project goes live, we hand over our testing to our other team in our organization that is called the TAS team. And this team actually does regression testing for the Oracle patches. So after go live of the project, if the client wants us to continue testing for them for every Oracle quarterly patch that comes in, this is the team that comes into picture, and we hand over our test scripts to this team. Okay, so that was a little bit about us, and that is about me. I'm a senior principal consultant at AST, and I manage end-to-end test management for AST projects through multiple different business units. I live in Chicago, and I've been in AST for more than 4.5 years. And I've been responsible for creating this Testing Center of Excellence for AST. And now let's talk about how our testing process is structured, what exactly we test. And for that, I would take the example of our largest business unit, which is called the Oracle Cloud Apps. Okay, so Oracle Cloud Apps, this is our implementation of Oracle Cloud modules for our different government as well as commercial clients. So Oracle Cloud Apps has got 3 tracks. Those are finance, supply chain, and HCM. So each track has got multiple modules within. So for finance, we have modules like accounts payable, receivables, and so on. Similarly, we have for supply chain, we have procurement, purchasing, supplier, and those modules. And under HCM, we have like core HR, we have performance, and several other modules. So we have a total of about 45 modules that we implement as part of these 3 tracks. Okay. So what we do is we do the system configurations as per our design for the client. We do all of the customizations. And when everything is ready, we start the testing process. So we usually have 4 testing cycles. There are 2 that are internal, and there are 2, the other 2 are done by the client team. Okay, so our internal testing, the first one is called Sprint 2, and this is when our developers, are who we call as a functional consultants, they start to do the testing. They start the testing, they do their internal testing of the configurations that they have done for their application. And then when everything is done from their side, the testing COE team does unit testing, which is an independent testing, which we do from our side. So this is like our internal house cleaning process. We make sure that before the client team touches the system and the test scripts, we have done a thorough check from our side. Okay, so those 2 are internal testing. The next round is our formal testing, which is called SIT or UAT. So SIT is system integration testing, and UAT is user acceptance testing. Both of these are conducted by our client team, and we from AST support this testing effort. So all of this testing, which the formal testing, which is done by client, the results are entered by the client team themselves. And at any point of time, we have several projects. Like for now, for the Testing Center of Excellence, we have about 21 projects that we are managing. So those are all different clients, and those are all in different testing cycles. Okay. So, and then we do manual testing. We do not do automated testing in this part of the Testing Center of Excellence, the part that we manage. All of that testing is manual testing. And our test scripts are Word documents. And if you're familiar with Oracle, you would know that Oracle has quarterly updates, which means every quarter there are updates that need to be made in our Word documents, those test scripts that we have in our Word documents. Okay, so that was a little bit about staging the set on what we are going to talk about. So moving on. So before we had the Testing Center of Excellence, we had our test scripts completely decentralized, which means the test scripts were with our functional consultants. And what that means is for every project, every new project that came in and our consultant would start working on the scripts, they would use something from their previous project, or they would ask somebody else if they do not have a script for that. So one of their peers, one of their colleagues, they would ask for those, and then they would make the customizations as per the project need. And then if there was a quarterly patch, they would also have to make updates. And everybody was doing all of that. So all of our consultants were managing those test scripts themselves. So there was a lot of redundancy that happened because of that, because everybody will make updates for Oracle patches. Everybody will start with a document that was previously used for a particular client, remove all of the client data from there. So there was no generic format of those test scripts. Okay. Secondly, the testing that was done before formal testing, that was only internal testing. So our function consultants, they would do all of the testing by themselves. So they would do the system configurations, and they also did their testing themselves before we went for formal testing by client. All of the different projects had different testing metrics. The different project managers reported testing in a different format. And we used spreadsheets, Excel spreadsheets for all of test management. So there were different versions of those spreadsheets. It was very, very difficult to manage because there were multiple different versions for every execution cycle, every change that required and there was no traceability when you made that change in the spreadsheet. So it was all over the place with regards to maintenance of the spreadsheets. We also use Jira for our RAID log. So all of our issues and the RAID items, they were all logged in Jira. There was no central place where one could find all of the testing resources. Okay, so this is what we started with. This is what we had before we started working towards a testing center of excellence. Our main objective was to have test management done in an efficient manner. And the approach that we had was, number one, to have a centralized testing repository, which means all of the testing resources would be put at one place, and that would be centrally available, and all of our consultants can go to that resource and get their test scripts. All of those test scripts will be updated every quarter. There's going to be a continuous maintenance process because Oracle comes out with those quarterly patches. So we had to put together a system of continuous maintenance of those test scripts and all of our testing resources. Sorry. We also had to standardize our testing methodology, and we had to do that on the test management application, PractiTest. So that was the application that our executive leadership team chose for our test management initiative. Okay, so we had to centralize and we had to standardize. Okay, so moving on, this was our journey of centralizing and standardizing testing. So as I said, this process was initiated by our executive leadership. They sponsored this part, and we always had their support. And that is a very crucial part in the success of this testing center of excellence. So we started the process. So remember, all of our test scripts were with our consultants, and there was no central place where those could be found. And those were all customized according to some client. So we started the process of putting together all of those scripts which were prepared for different projects and different clients. And we started to remove all the client-specific data in them. And we started to prepare a standardized version of those test script, completely genericize them in order to make them repeatable, make them in a version that any project could use them. So have only the standardized Oracle functionality in them, in those test scripts. Okay, we formalized the structure of this document. This was a Word document, and we call this an EDM 540. We had uniform formatting across all of the 45 modules that we had. And we also established a process of updating all of these documents, these 45 documents, and some of them have hundreds of pages, like 200, 400 pages of test scripts. And those are 45 modules. So we started the process of, we first did our first update in a centralized location, and then we set up the process to repeat this update process every quarter. Okay, so that was our starting point. And then we had our governance model decided as fully centralized for all of test management. We selected the infrastructure and tools. We already were using SharePoint for sharing all of the documents. And then we brought in PractiTest for test management. That's an end-to-end solution, as many of you will know. The good thing about PractiTest is it works with how our business is structured, which means you need one PractiTest license to work on multiple projects. So for example, I work on several projects, and the license cost that I pay is just one for myself. So similarly, there are all of these functional consultants who work on multiple projects, but they just have one license, and that for us is cost effective. Of course, for our client team, they just it would be one client and they would be on just one project, but we have to absorb that license cost. But for our internal team, we can work on any number of projects on PractiTest. We can set up any number of projects, and every project will be a separate entity. It will have all of the tracking and all of the tests done there, and with that one license. So that is a very cost-effective part for us. There's another thing that we like, which is an external link of PractiTest. So all of the stakeholders of project, they need to have a place where they can view the run results, regardless of whether they have access to PractiTest, whether they have a license to PractiTest. And this becomes especially useful for our leadership team if they want to view how each of the projects are working and a real-time view of the testing process. There is an external link which does not require a license. And anybody who clicks on that link will get the most updated, most real-time version of the testing process of that project. Okay, so we selected PractiTest for our test management, and then we already used Jira for issue management, and we decided to integrate the two tools, PractiTest and Jira. Okay, so that is how we decided on our infrastructure and tools. Next, we worked on defining our testing methodology, putting together a list of guidelines and best practices to make sure that we have consistency in our testing process across all of the different projects. And then we built our methodology, our testing methodology. And since we are using PractiTest, we built our methodology around PractiTest. Okay, so in a quick summary, our methodology is we have all of our test scripts, generic versions, standard versions, and when a new project starts, we give those generic test script document to the project team. The project team, everybody has the same version of document. So for example, our latest version is 23C. 23C, that is the scripts updated for the third quarter of Oracle's quarterly patch. It's A, B, C, D for the different quarters. So the third one is the latest one that we have. So we would give all of our test scripts to the new project team. They would start making the customizations, and then they would group those test scripts as per the business process that they want to test. Those will be end-to-end business processes, also called scenarios, also called test set on PractiTest. So we would receive the test scripts, we would receive our test sets from the project teams, we upload them on PractiTest. We also have a separate project in Jira set up for that project. We integrate those two, PractiTest and Jira projects. And then we prepare dashboards on PractiTest, we set up reports, we provide access to the project team, we do the training both for our AST team as well as for the client team on how to work with PractiTest and Jira. And we provide support as required, and also daily reporting. So that's our methodology in a nutshell. So we put together this methodology, and this is something that we repeat in all of the projects. We also developed our templates to upload our tests, our test sets, our requirements, and all of that. We set up a formal training structure and our training documents for the standardized methodology of testing, and also how to use PractiTest and Jira. We also put together a structure on how to customize the standard test scripts. And then we define the standard metrics, consistent metrics for all projects, also how to do a defect triage for the project in a standard way. And then we also have a standard report that we've prepared for a daily communication, end of the day reporting of the run status of the project. Okay. We integrated PractiTest and Jira at the application level. So PractiTest and Jira are integrated at that application level. And what that does is any new project that we have in PractiTest and Jira, we are able to do that integration in just one step. And we started with one project in our first business unit, which is the largest one, the Oracle Cloud Apps Group. And then we expanded it to multiple projects and then to multiple business units also. We also regularly review and refine our process, and we make sure that our methodology evolves as per the needs of our organization. So that was the process that we used for creating this testing center of excellence, and now about how we evolve and how we maintain that. So there's a very important part for us in which we need a continuous feedback from all of our projects to keep our test scripts, which are our core, the core of our testing methodology is our test scripts. And we want to make sure that those are not updated, not just updated as per the quarterly patches, but also if something, if there is a new functionality that comes in between the quarters, or if there is a new functionality that our project team identifies that needs to be added to our document, we do that. So there's a continuous feedback loop that goes on between the Testing Center of Excellence and our project implementation teams. They let us know if something needs to be added, and we use their feedback for continuous improvement of our documents and also for our process. And we make sure that we communicate continuously, which means if there is a change in our process, or if PractiTest has come across with a change, the user interface has changed, we make sure to send those notifications to all of our internal stakeholders, all of our AST people who work with these documents and with PractiTest, to make sure that they are all updated about this and nobody is caught off guard. So there is something that we call a monthly newsletter that goes out from the Testing Center of Excellence. It is usually at the end of the month, but if there is a new change that has happened, if there is something that requires to be communicated with our internal audience, we send out those communications as they happen. Okay. So communication and collaboration is very important. We make sure that we are already all the time we are connected with all of our stakeholders, keeping them updated with all of the changes that happen. And also all of the latest trends that we read about from the Testing Center of Excellence. We attend seminars and workshops, and also the knowledge that is available in all over the internet with the new things that are being tried by different companies. We bring in all of those in our newsletter and we share it with our internal AST team. Also, we do a regular review of how we are doing against our initial objective of efficient testing process. So we make sure we are still staying efficient. We started our process about 4.5 years ago, and the Center of Excellence was created about 2 years ago, or 2.5 years ago. And it has been evolving, and we do want to make sure that we change as per the changing needs of the organization. Okay. So that was the process, how we built our Testing Center of Excellence and how we maintain it. And let's look at what we have achieved as part of this standardization. For all of the projects from the mobilize stage all the way through deploy, which is the go live stage, we make sure that they have Oracle Cloud test scripts of the latest version. So any new change that happens, we communicate that with all of our stakeholders. And if there is a project that has started in a particular version of Oracle, so let's say there is a project that started with 23B and now 23C has come in and there have been some changes. So we notify them about the delta and how to make sure that they would have made changes and done the customizations in their 23B version document, and how to take care of the delta which has come in 23C. We maintain a summary of that, and we make sure that our implementation teams are made aware of that so that they can make those changes in their document. And we make sure that they always have the the most updated scripts available through all stages of the project. We've also created this SharePoint site where we have put our methodology, our templates, and all of our training material. This is just a snapshot. We have a lot of training material for our methodology. We have training guides for how to work with PractiTest, how to work with Jira, how to log run results, how to customize test scripts. All of the templates that we need for uploading into PractiTest, all of those are there. And so this is our Testing Center of Excellence for our Cloud Apps group. Okay, and this is our testing methodology. And this is very detailed, but I will not go very much into detail, but this is just to show how we get involved in each stage of the project, from the mobilize through define, model, and verify and deploy. What we do, what the Testing Center of Excellence team does in all of these different stages of the project. Okay, so like for example, during model phase, there is sprint 2, we do a demo, we do a training and demo, we configure PractiTest, and the results are entered in PractiTest. So if you see orange here is AST solution team. So sprint 2, because that is internal testing, results are entered by our AST team. And then we do our unit testing, which is also our internal testing, and the results are entered by our unit testers. So this is how the Testing COE team gets involved in all of the different stages of the project. And that's a snapshot of our dashboard for one of the projects on PractiTest. We track the total number of scripts. We also track total number of test sets, the run status, the issue status, and all of that is maintained on PractiTest. And this is something that is liked very much by our leadership team. This is a central testing dashboard. This is a way to monitor every project and what execution cycle they are in, what test execution cycle they are in, and what is their run status at any given point of time. So if you see here, here is a list of projects that are in SIT, and these are all in UAT, and anybody who clicks on this, they will get the most updated information about the testing process and the status of testing for that project. Okay, so this is a central testing dashboard that we've created, and anybody can click on that to get the latest information. While we were creating this Testing Center of Excellence, we did face some challenges, and the first resistance that came was about, why do we have to move from the spreadsheet to a test management application? Everything works fine on a spreadsheet. Why do we have to move? Why do we have to have templates for uploading to PractiTest? Why do we have to enter the results there? Just doing a pass and fail is so much easier on a spreadsheet. But we had to, we had our leadership team, they were our sponsors, and they helped communicate the message that this is an efficient approach to testing. And also every run and the entire history of what is done with any test set, the traceability, all of that is automatically saved on the test management application. So it's a very efficient way of testing. And we were able to communicate that, and we continue to do that. Anybody who comes in new, who's not been with our testing methodology for a long time, they always question the part about spreadsheet is so much better. But eventually, after they have worked on one project with us and worked on the standard methodology and see how the tool PractiTest and how Jira works, they do like that part, that everything gets maintained and saved automatically. And also there is a part where, if they would use spreadsheet for doing the pass and fail for their tests, it can never be validated. So anybody from the client side, they can come and say, okay, we never passed that one. This actually had failed. So, but okay, just 1 second. Sorry. Sorry about that. I should have put that off. Sorry. So what the test management tool does is all of the pass and fails that are logged on the test management tool PractiTest, there is a name of a tester for each of those test instances. And then you can always say that our testing is validated because the client tester name is against those pass and fail. And also there's real-time metrics for all projects. And that is something that everybody likes, to have a real-time view about the testing status. The second challenge that I often face is, and that is like an ongoing thing, anybody who comes into our testing process, and we work with different project teams, we work with different client teams, and there is a thing about the terminology. So the way we understand terminology is we have scenarios which are end-to-end processes, and those end-to-end processes are tested through test scripts. So there could be a grouping of multiple test scripts to test a scenario. Okay, so this is a scenario and this is a test script. And within the test script, there are multiple steps. Now, the confusion comes in when people say, okay, we have to add a scenario. And they could be meaning that they want to add a step within the script, or they could mean that they actually have to add a new scenario, a new process to PractiTest. It's only after we have a discussion with our project teams that we actually come to know what they mean. Is it actually a full business process, an end-to-end process, or it is just a test script, or it is a step within the script? Okay, so for example, there could be a test script of hire an employee, and they might want to add a nuance around in that test script. Or let's say if we are doing a school project and there is hire a school principal and hire a bus driver and hire a teacher. So those are three different validations, and you want to test all of those. So they want to add those variations, but everything is called a scenario. So it's a little challenging and a little confusing to understand what exactly they mean. Do they want to add a process or a test script or a step? And I see all over people use this terminology, scenario, for describing everything, for all the three. And also test cases. So there's no uniformity, but when we start our process of testing methodology, the first thing that we talk about is, this is a test set, this is a test instance, and this is a test step. So this is to make sure everybody's on the same page. We try to do that, but there are always new people who come in, and then we go back to square one. So the terminology part is an ongoing thing there. It's not very difficult, but it's an iterative process of explaining the same thing multiple times. The next resistance that we had was when we introduced the concept of independent unit testing by Testing Center of Excellence. So if you remember, we have 2 internal testings that go on before we start our formal testing by the client team. So our functional consultants, they did the system configurations and all of the customizations, and they would they would be in the habit of doing their own testing. So we needed to tell them that the people who do the configuration should not do their own testing. So nobody should test their own work, right? So anybody who's testing their own work brings in the confirmation bias, and that everything, and we all know that as testers, if we are testing our own work, we try to prove ourselves right rather than proving ourselves as wrong or having done a mistake in a configuration. So we had to convince people that even though you, as a developer, as somebody who's done all of the configurations, you would have done the testing, before we give the system to the client for testing and before we expect them to look at the test scripts and do the testing, we should do our own internal house cleaning. So that was something that not all project teams were very easy to accept that part. But whenever we did that internal house cleaning, we brought in our internal testers, our junior functional consultants who acted as end users, who acted as client, and we would ask them to go through each of the test script steps and execute those steps just like a client team tester will do. It always brought in that end user perspective, and it always made our deliverable much better. So because somebody who's done the configuration themselves, they know how to move around the system, and they don't need to go through the script. So they will not test the test script. We need somebody else to do that check for us. So that is something that is liked by all projects, but it's a little difficult because from the project implementation team, they don't have a lot of time between their internal testing and client testing. So we still ask them to give us at least a week where we can do our independent testing, but that needed some convincing. The fourth part is PractiTest allows us to import our tests, our requirements, issues, all of those can be imported through a spreadsheet, but there was no way to import test sets. And the way our projects work is every project, we have hundreds of test sets, sometimes even 1,000, more than 1,000 or 2,000 test sets. And those test sets or those scenarios are built on a spreadsheet by our implementation team. They are linked to the test scripts on that spreadsheet, and then we upload. So it was a lot of manual process, tedious process of uploading those. So we created an in-house tool to import those test sets. So that was a very tedious process for the testing COE team. But we were able to overcome that through this API tool that we uploaded and that we developed. And through that, we are able to upload all of our test sets from a spreadsheet. If I look back and to summarize what worked for us is we did develop and we did centralize and standardize thing, but that is not, it's a very simple thing that we did in part of standardizing and standardizing, but we did it in a very consistent and disciplined and organized manner. So it's not rocket science, but we did it with a lot of rigor. We made sure that we followed the process to the T for every project that we managed the testing process for. And through the entire process, PractiTest support team has been very helpful. They have the best response team. Any question that you ask, that gets answered within 10 minutes or less. And that has been great. So that is one of the great things that I always talk about PractiTest. It's their support team. They always, I believe support should be provided when it is required and not at the convenience of the person who is providing the support. And PractiTest support is excellent in that regards. They always have very quick answers. Anything that we need, if our customers need something and it's not something that we've built before, and there's a certain way they want something, maybe a report or a dashboard item, we always get that support from PractiTest. So that has been great. And of course, we have all the support from our AST leadership. So that has been the single most important factor of making this a big success. So throughout this process, we have been putting together the framework, we've put together the people, the process, and the tool, putting them together. We kept adding people for managing the testing process. So these are the people who configure and set up PractiTest. They upload the test sets. They also do the training. They do the daily reporting. We have another team that does updates of our test scripts. And those are about 75 to 80 people every quarter. They come together to update our test script documents of 45 different modules. And we actually have 2 documents now for each module, because we just started with Word document. And we also needed a spreadsheet version of that, because we cannot upload into PractiTest through a Word document. So we developed a spreadsheet for all test scripts, and all of that maintenance of both the documents for all modules is done by our maintenance team, and they do not work throughout the year. They come into picture once every quarter, and they update our scripts. We also have a unit testing team. They do the independent testing from our internal testing perspective. So we built the repository, we put in the scripts in there, all the template, methodology, everything is in there. And of course, our PractiTest tool integrated to Jira. And this is what we achieved. We wanted to standardize, and we wanted to make the process smooth and efficient, the test management process, and we made the Testing Center of Excellence. So we did not start with the idea that we are going to make a Testing Center of Excellence, but we built all of the different components, the framework, the process, the tool, the people, the repository, and all of that came together and became our Testing Center of Excellence. And this is a snapshot of our SharePoint site. Under our homepage, we have practices, and under practices, you will find Testing Center of Excellence. It's a horizontal that works with multiple projects and multiple business units. So that's a recap of our process. If you want to create a Testing Center of Excellence for your organization, you will start with assessment of your organization, what level of maturity you are at, what is your process, where you want to get at, what is the process gap. You would need to have a buy-in from your leadership or all of your stakeholders. Choose a governance model, whether you want to be fully centralized like us, or hybrid, or decentralized. You would select a tool and your infrastructure. You would document your methodology. You would build your templates and your training material. You would have your metrics, and you would have a culture of collaboration and communication with all stakeholders for this process to work. You would start with one project and then scale up to the next project, and multiple projects after that. Have the feedback loop from the stakeholders, keep improving, stay updated and review, and always make sure that you are, the performance should always be measured against the basic objective, the first thing that we started with, and make necessary changes as required to make sure that the testing process is efficient. Okay. So that was all that I had from my side for this workshop. Let me know if you have any questions.
Okay.
And thank you so much.
Thank you, Mohita. That was wonderful. I think we got a really good 360 view and understanding of what you were able to accomplish at your company. We do have a couple of questions I wanted to pass along your way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the first one is from Caitlin. She asks, whose job is it to write the newsletter, and how often is it sent out?
Okay, I sent out the newsletter and I write that newsletter. And the usual cadence is once a month on the last day of the month. But if there are changes that we need to communicate about, we also do it during the month at any time. But the monthly newsletter, it goes out every month, for sure.
Okay, great. Second question is from May, asking about how many people you have on your team.
So like I said, we have 3 categories of people. So we have about 9 people who are doing test management tasks. There are about 79 people who work quarterly for updates of our test scripts. So they are not there for the entire time, but every quarter. And there are about 35 people who help out with our unit testing, our internal unit testing. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, and it looks like we have one final question from Brian. He's asking about organizational support. What do you advise for a leader or personnel who does not have the organizational support that you had? I think what he's asking is, you mentioned that you had strong support from AST. So what would someone do in your case where they have the personnel, they have the tools, but maybe they're getting some pushback from their leaders?
Yeah, I think what I would recommend is to talk to the leadership team in that case and to convince them and to show that you have your tool, you have the skill and everything to make it happen. But unless you have the sponsorship from the leadership team, it is going to be very difficult. So that buy-in and that support is required. So I think they would need to convince somebody from the leadership team, whoever is able to make sure that this is communicated to the entire organization. So yeah, that would be required.
Okay, excellent advice.